Welcome to Love and Life. I'm Dr. Karen Anderson-Abril here with my co-host,
Pastor Elliott Anderson.
And Love and Life is your place to hear conversations grounded in psych research, psychotherapy,
and biblical truth
to help us thrive in love and life.
So Karen, I wanted to do some more follow-up from the episodes we've done recently about the effect of statements rather than questions and trying to neutralize in a positive way potential tense dynamics in marital or romantic relationship. And so we talked a lot about that strategy, and I've used this for a long time. And so whenever we're doing episodes that are very directly related to my sessions, it's cute then to have the clients come and go, I heard that exactly right. And I've been doing that and going through that piece here and there. And so two of the sessions this week that came from that perspective, we're talking about the challenge to get into a statement world rather than a question world is to apply it and then be quiet, right? Because often if we do that and we ask a statement to someone who maybe is not as direct oriented or as open with their emotions, and they're used to us asking the questions, used to us doing the interrogation, or, hey, what'd you think about this? Or why'd you do that? Or how come we're doing this? And do something much more general, like making a statement like, hey, it's really hard sometimes for me when this happens in our relationship, and then just be quiet. You didn't ask a single question. You're commenting, you're reflecting, you're bringing something up. And it's kind of trying to enter from the mind to mind conversation, get heart to heart, soul to soul, but to do that without a question, which sometimes, as the expert told us last time in the episode, can put someone in a defensive posture, even if it's nothing they need to be defensive about. It just feels like, oh, I got to explain myself now.
Right.
Right. And so often with couples in sessions, when that happens, I'm able to point out quickly and stop it. So in this recent session, the wife, who's a faster processor, more external, more communicative, and in nature more in tune with her emotions than her husband, she asked the question, and I could tell the husband felt a little bit attacked by it, a little bit bothered by it, though she did not mean it that way. In fact, I think she knew the answer. She was trying to use the question as a way to bait or to get out more information. And so I stopped it immediately and said, let's stop that. Don't answer the question. And then I turned to her and said, rephrase it now as a statement. And she did. And it was just a more benign statement of, I understand actually what you're doing or why. And then he was so relieved and then just opened up and shared a lot. It was just such a fine example of the nuances that even though she was trying to respect his male authority and his style and his personality by kind of asking this simple question to try to draw out his information, he immediately postured back and sat back and was defensive in nature, even though he's not a defensive guy by, all style and mode. It was just a perfect example. And then she turned in the middle of that and laughed and said, that was on your last episode. I said, you're exactly right. It was. And it's so much more effective. And it was just a great example. And both her and then the client I had just before the podcast today talked about hearing it, understanding is one thing, applying it's another. And for both these ladies, they don't like silence and they end up filling the silence, which stops men many times from getting their heart out. This one's more of a confrontation about honesty and authenticity and openness about schedule and routine and staying connected to the children. And this wife tends to retreat and just suffer in silence and never bring the issues up. And then the man doesn't know. And then acts startled or surprised when later it comes out. And so this time she had an opportunity with some quality time, just the two of them without the children, to bring some things up. And she started in the way of question, and the answers were there, but he got defensive and a little frustrated, and it wasn't as smooth or as effective as it could have been. So we spent time this morning going through 3 or 4 statements to kind of have in our back pocket. And they're all based on our own reflection. And again, when you're dealing with masculine and feminine energy, and every guy is different, every woman's different, but in a general sense, if the man is a good provider, a good protector, has a good sense of his masculine identity and nature and enjoys that, a great way to start these in a statement way is, hey, I thank you so much for all your hard work and how much you provide for me and the kids. And then, comma, I'm a little overwhelmed lately. And then be quiet. Don't fill the silence. Majority of men who care and who are engaged are going to then ask, hey, well, what's going on? Why are you overwhelmed? Let them ask the question. If you're the relator, you're the more processor, communicative, emotionally aligned. And now it's an open door rather than trying to ask him questions when your real desire is to get your own heart out, but you're asking him questions, try to get him involved first. Rather, some type of general statement or a reminder statement. Hey, just want to remind you, we got these events coming up for the kids, and then use we language again. We got to make sure we're on top of these details. That's way better than getting in the van or truck with your husband saying, hey, got your calendar? You got to make sure you don't jack these up and miss all these dates. Right? Then the man, especially if he's on top of things normally, is going to be frustrated by that. Right? If Angie tells me those things, I'm like, phew, good thing we're going after this. Let me get out. Right? So it depends on the dynamic, but that's just a general how I've been putting these exact episodes into context and counseling as we are communicating ourselves as podcasters.
A few years ago, I started having trouble falling asleep, and I started taking melatonin because I thought it was a natural way to try to relax myself, calm myself down, and go to sleep. But it turns out that as a hormone supplement, melatonin can disrupt our other hormones, and we can build up an immunity to it. So when we started partnering with the wellness company, I was super excited to try their melatonin-free sleep aid called Restful Sleep. It includes passion flower, chamomile, valerian root, among other herbs, and natural ways to help calm us down and get us ready to go to bed. I've been using it for a couple months now, and Restful Sleep helps my mind and body quiet themselves and ease into sleep. If you've ever had insomnia, you know how brutal it is. The wellness company's Restful Sleep can help. Head over to twc.health/lovelife and enter promo code LOVELIFE at checkout for 15% off your entire order. That's twc.health/lovelife and promo code LOVELIFE for 15% off your entire order.
It matters too whether we're trying to ask permission for things that we shouldn't need to ask permission for. That puts you in a one down position, right? So when I'm having my kinetic issues and I need to take a walk or mow the yard at 7:00 when it really doesn't need to be mowed that much, but that's not a time where I go ask Angie, hey, can I go mow the yard? She's like, you're a grown man. If you need to mow the yard, mow the yard. But rather, if there was something we were going to do together potentially, right? Or she wanted me just to go with her to go to Jewel or something just because she likes the company and doesn't like to drive at night, right? Then I can say something like, hey, instead of going to Jewel, I feel I really need to get some kinesthetic workout in. I'm going to go garden a little bit, or I'm going to go mulch a little bit or something, rather than asking permission. Because then when we ask permission, we're giving them the opportunity to speak truth into it. And if maybe that's not their first choice, now we got this awkward dynamic going where we ask permission for something that really isn't necessarily a permissible issue. And we've created the dynamic of power and authority. So Tim, yes, there is truth to relationship and style and perspective. And some people are more direct, some more indirect, some more quiet, some more loud. And so knowing those nuances, you married the person or you're choosing to date them, no one's got a gun to your head. And sometimes there's relevant issues like children that make it a much more difficult process. But rather than trying to change your partner and change your spouse all the time, accept them for who they are, what they're like, how they're like, and then join in those mannerisms. Right? When I'm communicating with Warren as our firstborn, super direct, in charge kind of guy who's often too busy, I just get right to the point. Right? Instead of asking, what are you doing Friday at noon? I say lunch, ? 12 o'clock Friday. I lay it all out. Just be really direct right up front. I do that with Angie about date night, another firstborn direct person. I'll say tacos, ? 5 o'clock Friday or whatever. I don't say, hey, what do you think about a potential date night on Friday at 5? She's already going to get annoyed because it's already going to be like 6 texts for one simple element. So we have to know who each other are and work within the strengths and understandings of those or the weaknesses at time about who we are and trying to get heart to heart, soul to soul, rather than just functionality of schedule, structure, our process.
So I'm sitting here, Elliott, thinking about the listener going, what do I do with this?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if, just as a kind of fun exercise for all of us, you and me included, in the next couple of weeks in our relationships, when we have that urge to ask a question, take a beat and go, hey, is a statement actually going to be a more effective communication method right now? And I think it's just something that just to kind of consider. And even going back to last week's episode where that gentleman that we played the clip, that was really clear how we can, and as you've discussed even earlier in this episode, that information may be more forthcoming from the person from whom you desire to hear the information if you say a statement, which again is very counterintuitive, which is why I think it bears repeating. And then maybe even putting in place like a little, hey, the next couple of weeks, let's try it, all of us, and see, and come back to each other later.
Yeah, I love that.
And hear from the listeners too. I can send out in the newsletter that we're going to try this and give us your feedback. Like, did you try it? Did it work? Was it awkward? Did you forget to do it? Of course, and all those sorts of things. So let's, we'll, at the end of the episode, we'll kind of make a game plan for an action item, as they say in the business world. So when I got married, getting married later, having been single for so long and just managing my own schedule, schedules, you brought up that as a good example for a couple times already. That's such a clear one for couples because we are on the same schedule or need to be. And so for me, I kind of slipped into asking, like, are you okay if I go hang out with Kate in the city next weekend?
Yeah.
That kind of thing, because I knew that my default mode would be like, it's my schedule, I do my thing. And I knew getting married later that I wanted to be respectful of that. But I'm sitting here going, oh, wait, am I giving him too much power?
Yeah, and I think in this case, not necessarily, because you're talking about going away from the area, right, in the city, in Chicago, and anything that's going to kind of alert his protection and provision mode. Mm-hmm. It's helpful to make sure he's cool with it. Yeah. Because it's like, hey, my wife's going into the city. How late are you going to be there? When are you coming back? Right. And he's going to want to know just for protection. And again, because you'd been single for a long time, I think that's a appropriate, permissible thing. Mm-hmm. That it's wise to, even though you don't need it like authoritatively approved, it's still a wise connection. But I think at times you could probably even change the language a little bit and it would be even stronger. Like, hon, I'd really love to connect with Kate in the city or my friends in the city or whatever. Mm-hmm. This weekend seems relatively open. I'd like to do that. Is that cool with us?
Yeah.
Same kind of thing without quite as direct as like, are you okay with it?
Right. No, it could be because I think it's a more honest way of communicating. Now that we're kind of teasing this out, I'm thinking for me to ask like, hey, I see that the schedule's free this weekend. Are you good with me heading up to the city to see Kate for dinner on Friday or something like along those lines? But the more honest is, I would really like to connect with my friend.
Exactly.
I haven't seen her. She's come down to our place the last couple times. I think it's my turn to go by her because that's what friends do. You don't always make it like, oh, sure, Absolutely. Come down to our house. And having been single, sidebar for any single listeners, I think couples can oftentimes do that, which is a strange thing. I remember Heather talking about it when she was single, that her married friends and her counselor at the time pointed out to her, her married friends would be like, oh, come visit us. And she'd drive a couple hours to visit them. It's like, well, wait, why don't they drive to visit her? They got someone to talk to in the car the whole time. But there's a weird thing that once you're a couple, then then you kind of, I don't know. It's very, it's unspoken.
Couple-centric. It becomes couple-centric. Yeah. We've talked about this on an episode maybe a year ago.
Probably.
The one question came in about the kids. I think it was about kids. Like, she didn't have kids and all of her friends had kids. And it became so baby focused, like they just shoved her out of the way.
Yeah, it was.
And Karen, let me interrupt before I forget a point.
Yeah.
You brought up a really important aspect, and I usually use this with my clients. The goal is authenticity and openness and honest at the highest level.
Yeah.
So we can really deal heart to heart, soul to soul. And what happens a lot in questions, and why I'm so anti-question at the time, is we often ask secondary questions trying to do a lead-in question to really get to what we really want.
Sure.
And half the time we ask it in a way that invites the person to enter in and give their opinion. But now if they've given an opinion different than what we wanted, now we're frustrated. Now we're working off attention, didn't need to be there.
Yeah.
Right. So if you say to Dan, for example, hey, are you cool with me going to the city this weekend? without stabilizing or stating who, with, what, how long, when, you're going to trigger that protection provision mode of being a little more authoritative. Well, I don't know who you're going to be with, how long. And now you're feeling a little defensive. Like, I just want to connect with my friends.
Right.
So being more authentic up front, say, this is what I would like to do. Here's the relational piece, community piece, the timing piece. So I thought that was great that you used that particular example.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what I'd love listeners to hear, is that it's not that all questions are bad.
Yeah.
It's often we're being indirect, we're being secondary, we're being overly cautious. And again, our non-confronters out there, our non-direct communicators out there, especially if you know the conflict animal style, if you're on the teddy bear, turtle side, or panda bear side, we tend to do that, especially if we have a more aggressive, assertive partner. And all we do is like activate their assertiveness. Rather than trying to get them into the middle, we're going to activate the thing we don't want by asking these secondary questions.
Yeah.
So that's why we need to be more honest and more open and lay it all out. I do this a lot with young couples to try to help them learn. And then it's, of course, the older couples that are stuck on things, and we kind of got to reverse engineer and deconstruct their processing and argument styles. And that's, again, when teaching them to figure out ways. And I think your advice is a great idea. Questions aren't bad, but if you know this question is a little indirect or a little vague, can a statement that elicits emotion, connection, and joining be more effective? Then do the statement. And it might take time. I have clients who write them down on their phone. They write statements down, general statements out, so they can prepare and think through them, and then have opportunities to kind of put that into activation. Works great with kids too. When kids are kind of stonewalling us and want us out of their life. And what do we do as parents? We tend to get scared and fire away on them. Question after question after question. And often it's way better to figure joining statements and joining connectors to try to open that relationship back up.
Right. And even when, like I was sharing in the newsletter, piggybacking off of last week, even when questions are coming with the utmost care, concern, curiosity, trying to communicate deep interest, you can feel like you're in front of a firing squad. And that's what happened to me.
Yeah, for sure. And if you're with a more direct communicator, being more direct with them is way better than being extra indirect.
I'm just sitting here thinking about, like I said a moment ago, I'm sitting here reworking times when I have. And I think because I'm not as direct as many people in communication styles, I think, like to your point, the questions would be a way to kind of sneak in sideways. And then, like you said, elicit all kinds of like, I really just wanted to share my heart and what I would like to do. And of course, I'm in a marriage, so we don't do exactly, we have to honor one another's schedule and desires as we are making our calendar. And I think, I'm just thinking, it also gives your partner that authenticity and that opportunity to see your heart in a way that maybe you haven't shared. Like we've talked about extensively, like with COVID. So Kate was one, for example, that was willing, she was on the other side of everything and all the things actually, but she was willing to check in with me to a degree that other friends weren't about she even did 3 podcast episodes with us back in 2021 about what we were all dealing with as those who had picked different paths to move through that COVID event. And because she was willing to continue to try to forge a connection in the midst of horrible polarization, that touched my heart. And so there's times when I want to make sure that like I said a minute ago, I go see her. And so to share that with Dan, just like, hey, I want to see her. She's an important person in my life. Things have been so divisive, and I'm thankful that she's someone on the other side who continues to.
We're working hard on connecting still, and
just say that, and then Dan loves me because of my heart, right? That's one of the reasons he fell in love with me. So instead of just asking a question, which then puts him in, like you said, this position to give his opinion, which is valuable and relevant, but to
opinion with authority.
Right.
We ask permission. That's different than just opinion, right?
Yes. And it's an opportunity for me to lay a foundation for the subsequent couple-minute conversation of sharing my heart, which I think puts me in a position of him to look at me and go, okay, let me factor that in because I made a statement about where this is coming from instead of just going straight to the question. So
yeah. And so the heart, and Karen, you brought up another valuable, it's like you're leading me right to where I wanted to go. In confrontations and in conflict with anybody that we have a relationship with. So not a checkout person at Lowe's we get in an argument about, for whatever reason. I don't think I'd get in an argument with, but that's an example. But
you're
not
normally
that kind of
being very
confrontation.
playful with the checkout people, and your
Right,
daughters are being embarrassed for some reason when you're being just charming and
but
nice.
It's not. So it's not just like this random disagreement with someone. I'm talking about true friends and true connection, true family. That's when the questions are even more dangerous. And if we're trying to join the person in heart to heart, regardless of whether we disagree or not, just to join and stay that friend connected bond, the statements, like the I feel statements, are so much better than it feels like you're not listening. It feels like you don't care about my opinion. You don't care about, that might be a true reflection, but that's not going to help get heart to heart on the table. Rather, I'm feeling a little stuck. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling disconnected. I love you so much. I want us to work on different process. That's such a different statement than you're not listening to me and you're attacking me and you're polarizing me. And those all might be true, but why talk that way if our goal, like you said, is I just want the heart to heart. I want the soul to soul. And yes, some people are easier in the heart to heart than others, but that's why I'm trying to give a comprehensive tool and some processing communication styles that can help a ton. And it's hard to be quiet for those of us who are talkers. You and I are being two of them. Tim talks way more than we do, but you and I mainly, as being massive talkers, it's hard to keep my mouth shut. And my wife's internal and takes time before communicating. I don't. The majority of the time, I'm just firing. And so I can think of an example the other night where I wanted to ask her a couple questions, but she was tired and worn out, and the kids have been tough at school. And so I paused, thought through, all right, how can I bring this in a statement comment that'll give her time and processing? And I came up with a really good one and I threw it out there and I was quiet and she barely acknowledged that I talked at all. And I'm like, dang, it didn't work. And then she went, and I think it was getting close to us going to bed. She went and brushed her teeth, got in her pajamas, all that, and came back and boom, opened her heart up. And it reminded me again, internal processors, more introverted people like my wife, need time sometimes to process before they come back because she's internally processing what her emotional soulful connection will be, where you and I, as very external people, we will figure it out as we go, and our heart and soul are in it all, which makes us more prone to having our feelings hurt because they're all out there, right? So we're just giving that heart all the time. Does that make sense? That's just an example. I don't want to talk about what it was because it's a little too intimate for Angie's taste, probably. Regarding our family and everything at the moment. But
no, but the only thing I will say is that when you talk about internal and external processors, which we've talked about the last couple episodes, and you and Tim did, even the one before, but I may be an external processor with benign topics, but with conflict, I retreat for quite a while. Yeah. And then
you're a direct communicator, like on a podcast or teaching.
Oh yeah, or teaching for sure.
I think you're fairly indirect when it comes to relational context because you're such a peacemaker and you're such a collaborator and hostess personality. You want to bring people together and joy and fun, which is great. But that makes you a little indirect at times, probably in those scenarios. And I'm not saying I can't go there too. I can be pretty indirect when it comes to, I have to be in certain roles as a pastor. I can't be super direct every morning after I give a sermon. Hey, I hope that spot hit your heart the way it should have. I know what you're doing, right?
I was looking at you, John.
Right. Did you see my quote when you can't do that in certain realms. And so, Karen, that's a great point again, that one side of us might be direct, one side might be external, the other side might be internal and might be more introverted, and that is another frustration within marital or romantic relationships. Is often I hear from the husband or the wife, like they give their best personality and their best side outside of the home. And then at home, I get this grumpy, critical, negative thinking person. And then I see them be this amazing, positive, like, okay, it's fair. It's a fair complaint, fair frustration. What are we going to do about it? Attacking with a bunch of questions. Why are you always like that? Why do you give them the best energy? Why are you doing that's not going to help anything. It's going to cause more separation, more division. And so figuring out, how do I make some statements right now to let my spouse or partner know it's hurts or it's frustrating or it's sad. But again, with our goal of joining, our goal of understanding, our goal of connection, heart to heart, soul to soul. Right. And there's many things I'm sure our partners are frustrated with us about too, even if we feel like theirs is the main one causing struggle.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Even though I don't know why, I'm a dream to live with, a dream to be with.
Of course.
I don't know what the problem would be ever.
Yeah. And though I'm really relational and a good lover, a good connector of people, good provider, all those things, I say publicly with Angie all the time to people, and when it comes up in an appropriate way, like, I'm a difficult man to live with. I'm fun, I'm joyful, I'm happy, I'm provider, but I never stop moving. I have 19 things going on at once all the time. I can't even get myself settled down at night half the time. So my sleep's always been hectic and crazy, falling out of bed, kicking. I love a comedian. I sent it to Angie the other day because it was so funny. I can't remember which comedian it was, but he talked about his side of the bed every morning looks like you wrestled with a shark. He says his wife's side of the bed every morning looks like she didn't even sleep. That's a picture of our bedroom every single. So I just say those things to be honest and open and forward. Yes, there's a wonderful side of being married to me, I'm sure. But there's also tough stuff, right? There's tough stuff. There's challenges.
We'll let Ange come on and just say.
Well, she'll be brutally honest, both sides. She'll be very honest about the positivity and very honest about the wrestles. We were coming home from Michigan from Paige's graduation, and she was talking to her teacher partner, and she was telling her about how the weekend went, and she said, "Oh, he's been like so-and-so." And I knew who so-and-so was. And her partner was asking how I'd been on the trip. And she used the most out of control kindergartner in the school to be an example. And I'd been really hyper the whole weekend. I was having a hard time just sitting still. And so it was just cute. It was just funny. And I laughed. I wasn't upset. I wasn't offended. I understood it was kicking. The energy was kicking, and I was having a hard time not, I had nothing to do. I had no role in any of those activities.
Maybe that was the problem.
When I don't have a role and I don't have a purpose, I'm just supposed to sit there and be happy. It's hard for me. I am happy, but I can't sit still.
Right.
So we know each other well enough. She was sending me back to the truck to do stuff. Hey, why don't you go get a couple more blankets or something? Yes, good. Boom. And then I take off. And right. So we know each other well enough to know, instead of her just getting frustrated and mad at me, she gives me some things to do, which gets me moving. And so things like that, just understanding each other, processing through, not being offended by the truth. And man, is that hard. Or a partner brings something up that is truthful. Maybe they don't bring it up graciously. Maybe they don't bring it up with a affirmation sandwich to help us feel better. But if there's some truth, to try to allow the truth to penetrate even when our feelings are hurt. And that's hard. That's when you need some time to, again, count to 3 in your own head or something before immediately getting defensive, immediately getting reactionary. Exactly. Whatever it might need to be. Don't retreat so much, my panda bear friend, that you don't come back. But
that's what I knew you were going to go there. I'm like, I will go to bed angry. Yes, I will. It's biblical. Oh, wait, no, sorry. It's the exact opposite in the Bible, isn't it? Sorry, my bad. I didn't get the MDiv.
But right, for us like us who are really, really passionate, emotional people, when our feelings are hurt, it is difficult to have peace. It's difficult to calm. It's difficult just to go to sleep. And it's sometimes even difficult to forgive our partners, even when they weren't trying to hurt our feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I used to say that I used to tell people, oh, I'm very contained emotionally. I'm like, no, I'm not. My emotions are all over the place all the time. And I just accept it fully now and try to help my daughters understand they have the same DNA. They're super passionate, emotional responders, and try to help them be free in that and not try to fake it or try to hide it. You can't.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think you're the same way. You are. Another friend just told me this weekend, he was like, oh my gosh, does your daughter look like your sister when she was that age? I go, yes, I know. And they have a lot of similarities in their passions and their emotions and their creativity and brilliance. So that was fun. And with someone who hadn't seen her in a long time and saw her, it was like, whoa.
Yeah.
That's fun there too. So I know I'm special. Moving all over the place here, but I'm just trying to give a comprehensive understanding of all the factors in place and in play when we're having these type of conversations. And if you have one of those relationships where I'm like, something gets off, something it's misaligned when we're just talking through normal things. Consider these points. They might be causing a lot of damage without us knowing.
Yeah, well, I think it's just pulling the same theme through from the last couple episodes. And so to bring it to an action item, like I said a minute ago, let's think about all of us together, and then I'll put it in the newsletter too as a reminder, and then invite, and I'll see if Shelly, who helps us with the newsletter, if she can help me figure out a way that people could give us feedback if they've tried it.
I would love to hear it.
Yeah, it'd be really great to see and to hear the examples of people who've tried it, because I'm going to do it. Like we talked about, I've got many opportunities to do it, to try to replace a question with a statement. And you said something that was really beautiful. I think you said we're always going for the highest authenticity and intimacy, or something like that, to remind ourselves in the next couple of weeks as we try this little ask not, rather state challenge.
Yeah.
They're always doing these challenges on workouts and things. So this will be our challenge to one another, and to remember that the default mode, the impulse is usually to ask a question thinking you're going to gain information and gather and gain intimacy. And in fact, let's try with statements to see if that can be, in fact, much more authentic and intimacy building, cultivating.
And the exact opposite is true, I think, Karen, in brand new relational scenario. You've never met the person before. Dan introduced you, some of his connectors or people involved in the city or the buildings or any of that stuff. Then your ability, and you're really good at it, Dad was really good at it, to ask questions of genuine interest, to hear about what they're doing.
Yeah.
Beautiful. But after that relationship is solid for 10 years, you're still in that question mode all the time. The person's going to be like, doesn't she listen? I already told her all these things right now instead of statements. Hey, or it's one of those general questions. How are things going with so-and-so? And you're remembering a connection to what he or she told you 7 years ago. Yeah. Now you're tying those in, and it's a beautiful, and that's where your emotional connection, my emotional connection, can be very valuable. Because now we're responding to something we heard from a question, we received it. And all kinds of partners get irritated when their spouse asks them something that for information they should already know.
Yeah.
Then it feels like you're not listening to me at all.
Not listening.
But if you say a statement about something and you're not sure, now the information is likely going to be volunteered again, and it doesn't put you in that one down position of you're not listening, you're not hearing. So I think the challenge is great. And I've already heard from some clients, and Tim's going to do it. He's going to put his firstborn direct nature out the window for a week and be very statement oriented, just to see with his brothers and his wife, his children. And we will give updates and reports from there.
All right. Well, bless this challenge that we're going to.
Yes, Lord, thank you. And I think, Lord, even of your word, how many times Jesus did not ask questions. He asked the Pharisees a ton of questions. He was challenging their power. But it was when it was with sinners, when it was with the broken, the hurting, the wounded. He often just made statements like, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. Believe in me, you'll never thirst again, when someone was dying of thirst. So I think about how the Lord used that. And how, Lord, these statements, our desire for heart to heart and soul to soul, can be a truer, authentic, relational connector, a joining, an opportunity to learn more and understand more, and allow us to be more direct with our emotions and our feelings because they're not put in a question. And to invite our loved ones, our closest loved ones, especially the romantic partners, to join in that, which builds relationship, grows strength, grows intimacy, grows stability and strength. So we're praying that blessing upon all of our listeners, our own relationships, and look forward, Lord, to hearing reports and responses where we can learn and grow more together. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Amen.
Love and Life with Dr. Karen and Pastor Elliott is produced by Tim May and executive producer, Dr. Karen Anders-Nabrel. For more information about Love and Life, please go to loveandlifemedia.com.